Nobody saw it coming. Not the negotiators, not the executives, not the people who thought they had all the time in the world. For months, everything had moved behind closed doors. Quiet calls, draft language, numbers shifted, promises floated but never written down. That's how negotiations usually work. Slow, controlled, predictable. Until they weren't. The moment the documents leaked, the story flipped. Not just for the league, but for everyone watching from the outside. Fans who trusted the process, players who had been waiting, networks quietly weighing their options. And at the center of it all was one name nobody could ignore: Caitlin Clark. Here's what insiders say happened. The CBA talks were already tense. Not explosive, just heavy. Pay structures debated, media rights argued, scheduling concessions stalled. Leadership insisted progress was steady, but the leaked pages told a different story. Hesitation, limits, fear of giving one player too much leverage. That fear mattered. Leverage was already shifting. While the league argued with itself, the audience started moving, slowly at first, then all at once. People weren't tuning out of basketball, they were tuning into her. And that's when the first misstep occurred. Instead of reading the moment, leadership doubled down on control. Keep the spotlight inside the system, keep the messaging uniform, keep the power centralized. That's what the documents reveal. Not malice, just outdated thinking. Because outside the boardrooms, the world had already changed.
What does bother me is some of the people I deeply respect. Their basketball credentials, their basketball history, their commitment to basketball and women's basketball, I think have really not covered themselves in glory with some of this commentary. And I'm going to read you a quote, Colin, if I may, from, again, this person might know more about about women's basketball than any person who's ever lived, and that's Gino Auriemma. Gino Auriemma was on with my pal Dan Patrick a couple months ago when the Fever were struggling. And this was the quote: "This kid's on the wrong team. She's got the wrong skill set to handle the physicality in the league, and she's a rookie. This rookie class isn't even one of the best classes in the last 10 years. She's just not built for the physicality of this league. She's not quick enough to get away from the physicality." End quote. Gino, just say you're a UConn guy and you thought this was going to be Paige and instead it's Caitlin.
When NBC Sports called, they didn't ask for permission. They didn't wait for approvals or alignment. They just made a decision. Primetime, NBA broadcast, millions watching. A platform that needed no introduction. The impact was instant. Her debut didn't feel like a cameo. It felt like a takeover. Calm delivery, sharp analysis, zero rookie nerves. No scripted lines. Viewers noticed. Clips spread, engagement spiked, and within hours, the most uncomfortable metric appeared. People weren't just tuning in, they were staying. Meanwhile, something else was happening. Something nobody wanted to admit out loud. Unfollows.
Caitlin in that class by not being prepared for it, and the fact that so many journalists across the country, institutions failed to cover this league, Like, there's just so many institutionalized failings that now the league is attempting to hurdle over.
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest thing, just as far as the product on the floor? Because a lot of people talk about physicality. A lot of people talk about the referees. I actually did a deep dive in one of my episodes talking about like who the referees are calling to, essentially, and where the W gets their referees. But as far as the product, because at the end of the day, fans are not going to stick around if it's not a good product, period.
Right.
Like, they have to be there for the basketball, and I think...
Not in small numbers, not scattered. A wave. Accounts tied to league content dropped. Secondary projects dropped. Unprecedented. A concept that had promised a different future suddenly faced the contrast in real time. Games aired, effort stayed high, but the audience was thinner than projected. Insiders say the comparison was brutal. One screen showing millions, another struggling to hold attention. That's when panic crept in. Panic doesn't announce itself with noise. It arrives as silence. Phones stop ringing. Meetings stretch longer. Words are measured. At the head of the table sat Kathy Engelberg, listening to updates no spreadsheet could soften. Numbers don't argue, they accuse. And the accusation was clear. The audience had moved. Then came the commentary. Not official statements, not press releases, but conversations. Resurfaced quotes. Tone analyzed. One voice kept being pulled into it. Gino Auriemma. Context mattered. Timing mattered more. Comments that once sounded like standard competitive talk now read differently against this new backdrop. Not because the words changed, but because the moment had. Fans connected dots, sometimes unfairly, but loudly. The narrative solidified. They didn't see her. They didn't value her. They assumed they could wait. And that's how stories become symbols. Symbols are dangerous when you're negotiating power inside a league. Reports suggest the scramble had already begun.
After the 5 years, right? Let's see how well y'all do in the 5 years. Then you will have something to fall back on. But yeah, and they were saying the average could be $1 million across the organization, across the league, right? If everything works out perfectly with the 5% extra on top. So, hey, man, I don't know. It seems pretty good to me. Now, they did have some weird things in this improvement here. A few of them would be elimination of that grass testing, all right? That smoke is what we call it down here in Georgia. The smoke, okay? Now, it's crazy you would eliminate the testing, but then you would add new treatment programs for the grass or alcohol abuse. Like, what? Talk about contradicting yourself. I mean, I guess, man. But shorter disqualification periods under anti-drug program. Interesting, man. Complimentary all-star tickets for all players. Now, I thought all players get this anyway, so I don't know. Yeah, okay. And then free WNBA league pass. Man, that's tough. That is tough, man. They can't even watch. They watching like us. That's crazy, boy.
Calls were placed. Reevaluations ordered. What if we revisit the old framework? Someone asked. What if we sweeten it? Another suggested. Maybe a full reset, whispered a third. Not publicly, quietly, because timing betrayed the intent. Fans read it as pleading. Players read it as panic, and the audience, already drifting, saw confirmation. The system had misread the room. This is where the blow landed, not in a statement, not in a tweet, but in the numbers. Every appearance outside the league structure highlighted the contrast. Every NBC clip widened the gap. Every quiet weekend game with sparse engagement made the difference impossible to ignore. Insiders say the harshest realization came late, after the calls, after the drafts, after the what-if scenarios. If she had wanted the old deal, it would have happened earlier. Now, it was too late.
Actually, not the only place that is preparing for it. Unrivaled is also a place that is preparing for a strike, and we've heard it from other players. Like, we've heard Natasha Cloud say, if there's a strike or there's a lockout in the WNBA, everybody can go and play in Unrivaled. Which brings me to my last point on Unrivaled.
You know, I know a lot of people are kind of like hating about being a part of Unrivaled and also trying to negotiate the WNBA, but it's like, I want two things to both be successful. And literally that's how I'm looking at it. Like, I'm looking at this from a pure business standpoint and how things can be great for everyone. I think that Unrivaled, the only positives, like the only thing that Unrivaled is showing is positive. When you show players on social media or in games or wherever the case may be, people watch.
Right.
So we can't not have that for our summer season in the WNBA.
And this is where a lot of people from the beginning have been calling it a conflict of interest, because it clearly is. And I'm not saying that Breanna Stewart has bad intentions. I don't actually think that she does. But she's saying here, I want two things to both be successful. She cannot come out here and say that she cares about the WNBA more than she cares about Unrivaled, or she cares about Unrivaled more than she does the WNBA. She wants both of them to be successful. It's kind of impossible at this point, because you have the WNBA, who has
Because leverage isn't something you announce. It's something you demonstrate. And she was demonstrating it every time she spoke to a national audience that followed her, not the logo. The league didn't lose a negotiation publicly. It lost the room. That's the bitter truth the documents revealed. Not bad faith. Not villains. Just a system built for a slower era colliding with a player who moved faster than the process. In moments like that, even respected voices get caught in the undertow. Old hierarchies wobble. Established authority feels challenged, not because someone declared war, but because the crowd chose differently. By the end of that week, one phrase echoed among insiders, *, can we get her back? *, it wasn't literal, it was psychological. Could they reclaim the momentum? Re-enter the narrative? Convince fans that patience was still the play? The answer came cold, the audience had already decided. This wasn't revenge. It didn't need to be. The most effective response was silence. Show up. Perform. Let the numbers speak. And they did. Because when millions watch without being told to, contracts matter less. When attention moves organically, leverage follows. And when leverage shifts, negotiations stop feeling like talks, they start feeling like consequences.
Clark's back later this season. Cordell confirmed that she is scheduled to appear as an analyst for the Knicks vs. Thunder on March 29th. He also added that he hopes to see more of Clark moving forward, signaling that the door is open for additional appearances. While no expanded role has been formally announced, the comments suggested genuine interest rather than casual praise, i.e., they're not just blowing smoke up her ass. A growing presence in sports media. Clark's success as an analyst fits into a bigger vision for NBC Sports as it looks ahead to its NBA coverage alongside the NFL, Olympics, and streaming platforms. Cordello referenced Clark as an example of how elite athletes can enhance broadcasts with authentic insight. For Clark, it is another step in building a multifaceted career. For NBC, it is a reminder that her voice goes well beyond the box score. Caitlin Clark nailed it, according to the executives, in her NBC speaking analyst role.
That's why this moment felt like a nightmare to those in charge. Not because anyone was attacked, but because control was. The documents didn't just reveal terms. They revealed fear of losing relevance, fear of being bypassed, fear that the future wouldn't wait for permission. And the cruelest part? None of it required a confrontation. No press war. No public feud. No angry interviews. Just a platform, an audience, and a decision made before everyone else. By the time the league tried to regain its footing, the comparison was already set, NBC numbers on one side, struggling engagement on the other, and in between, the realization that talent plus timing beats process every time. That's how it ends. Not with a bang, but with a shift. A shift where the old deal sounds desperate. Where the old rules feel optional. And where the future no longer waits at the door. Because when the audience follows one person, the system learns too late what it should have done sooner.